Kicked out at 20 so my brother could take the house, I vanished for 10 years. Now my parents show up begging forgiveness after his life collapsed. I was just 20 years old when my parents kicked me out of my grandparents' house, the house that was supposed to be mine one day. But not anymore, because my younger brother was the golden child. So everything had to be his. He got the house, the car, the money, everything, and I got nothing. That house was promised to me by my grandparents, so I never thought I would have to leave. I still remember the day they told me I had to go. It was like a bad dream. I couldn't believe my parents could be so heartless. My brother had met a girl, and they wanted to move in together. And where were they going to live? In my house, the house I grew up in, the one I loved so much. I begged and pleaded with them, but they wouldn't listen. They said I was being selfish, that I didn't understand how important it was for my brother to be happy. They told me I could go live with my aunt who lived in another state. They didn't care what happened to me. I packed my bags that same day with tears streaming down my face. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. My parents had always favored my brother, but I never thought they would go this far. I felt like I had been robbed of everything that was rightfully mine. So I left and went to live with my aunt, who was kind enough to take me in, but I was never the same after that. I had lost my home, my family, and my sense of belonging. In the beginning, I tried to make the most of my new life, but it was never the same. I missed my grandparents' house so much. It was like a piece of me had been taken away. Now, 10 years later, they showed up on my doorstep begging me to speak to them. But can they make up for everything they've done to me? I don't know if I'm ready to forgive them just yet. Let me explain what happened. One day when I got back home from work in the evening, they suddenly appeared. I stood there, staring at my parents in disbelief. After all these years, they dared to show up at my doorstep and beg for forgiveness. It had been 10 years since I had last spoken to them. 10 long years since they had kicked me out of the house and handed everything over to my younger brother, their golden child. It was like they expected me to welcome them back with open arms, as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't forget the pain they had caused me, the pain of being kicked out of my grandparents' house, the only place I had ever called home, the pain of being cast aside like I didn't matter, just so my brother could move in with his girlfriend. After they kicked me out, I went completely missing in action. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing them, hearing their voices, or facing their smug expressions. I moved in with my aunt, who had always been there for me. I remember crying myself to sleep every night, wondering what I had done wrong to deserve such treatment. But as time passed, I slowly began to move on. I completed my education, got a job, started building a life for myself, and made new friends who loved and supported me. I tried to push the memories of my family to the back of my mind, and slowly they began to fade. Now, here they were again. I couldn't help but wonder why they had come after all these years. They begged me to let them inside and talk to them, their faces filled with remorse and regret. I was curious, so I asked them why they had shown up after 10 long years of silence. My mother's eyes were filled with tears as she explained that they had made a terrible mistake. They had put all their hopes and dreams into my younger brother and had given him everything, even the house that belonged to our grandparents. But things hadn't gone as planned for my brother. His girlfriend had left him, and he had ended up squandering away all the money and resources our parents had given him. Now, with no place to go, he had come back to my parents, who had no choice but to take him in. My parents looked at me with pleading eyes, begging for my forgiveness. They said they had realized their mistake and wanted to make things right. But I couldn't forget the years of pain and hurt they had caused me. I couldn't just forgive them so easily. I decided I didn't want to hear them out. They said they had regretted their actions every day since and couldn't bear to live with the guilt anymore, but I didn't believe them. I didn't have the energy to deal with them. I was in a good place in my life. I had a family of my own, a home, and a career that I loved. I had worked hard to build a life for myself, and I couldn't let them destroy it again. I told them to leave, to go back to the son they had chosen over me. I didn't need them in my life anymore. They had made their bed, and now they had to lie in it. As they left, their tears turned to anger, but I didn't care. I had moved on from the hurt they had caused me, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into the past. Update 1. 1 week later, a few days ago, when I walked into the living room, I was taken aback by the sight before me. My husband and my parents were sitting together, deep in conversation. I was frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. I was greeted by a smile from my husband, but my parents looked uneasy. I approached cautiously, taking a seat next to my husband. My parents immediately started apologizing again, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive them so easily. Their words were heard, but I felt nothing in response. My husband, sensing my discomfort, put a comforting arm around my shoulders. He then turned to my parents and spoke sternly. He told them that they couldn't just show up out of nowhere and expect everything to be okay. He told them they had hurt me deeply, and it was going to take more than a few apologies to make things right. My parents hung their heads in shame, knowing he was right. They had expected to be able to make amends quickly, but they now realized it would take time and effort to repair our relationship. They stayed for a while longer, trying to talk things through with me, but I remained distant and guarded. It would take a long time for me to trust them again, if I ever did. As they left, my husband pulled me into a tight embrace and whispered in my ear that he was there for me no matter what, and that we'd get through this together. I felt a sense of comfort in his words, and knew I wasn't alone in this struggle. We would work through it one step at a time. Update 2. A month had passed since my parents' unexpected visit, and things had settled down a bit. I had been trying my best to focus on my work and my relationship with my husband, but I couldn't help but feel conflicted about my parents. They continued to reach out to me, sending letters and leaving voicemails, asking to meet up and talk things through. I spoke to my aunt, who had taken me in all those years ago, about the situation. She listened patiently and offered her advice, but ultimately left the decision up to me. It was a difficult decision to make, as I still felt a deep sense of hurt and betrayal toward my parents. Part of me wanted to forgive them and move on, to try and rebuild our relationship, but another part of me was hesitant, unsure if I was ready to let them back into my life. I couldn't just forget everything that had happened and pretend everything was okay. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet with them to see if we could find some common ground. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop in the city. As I walked in, I saw my parents sitting at a table, looking nervous and apprehensive. We sat down and began to talk. They told me how sorry they were and how they regretted everything that had happened. They promised things would be different and that they would never hurt me again. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all just empty words. I told them how I had struggled over the first few years and how their actions had impacted my life. I talked about the pain and hurt I had experienced and how difficult it was to forgive and forget. They listened intently, looking remorseful. As we finished our coffee and said our goodbyes, I still wasn't sure if I wanted them back in my life. It takes a lot of effort to rebuild a relationship from scratch, and I'm not sure if I'm willing to put in so much effort and time. I believe it's important for the original poster to give her parents a chance. It's clear they are remorseful for what they did, and they are making an effort to reconcile with her. While it may be difficult to forgive them for what they did, it's important to consider the value and potential for a meaningful relationship moving forward. She can take things slowly, set boundaries, and see where the relationship goes. In my opinion, the parents' actions were unforgivable. They chose their golden child over their daughter and made her feel unwanted and unloved. While they are trying to make amends now, the damage has already been done. It's okay for the original poster to not want to let them back into her life. And she shouldn't feel guilty for setting boundaries to protect herself. Her well-being and mental health should come first. As an outsider looking in, it's clear that the original poster has every right to be angry and hurt by what her parents did. While it may not be easy, she may find that she can build a new, healthier relationship with her parents if they are truly remorseful and willing to work on things. She should listen to her feelings and maybe consider the possibility of forgiveness and reconciliation, but take things at her own pace and not feel pressured into anything. The original poster should be wary of letting her parents back into her life. While they may be apologizing and trying to make amends now, it's important to consider whether they will continue to prioritize their golden child over her in the future. She has already been hurt deeply by their actions, and understandably, she may not want to take the risk of being hurt again. Ultimately, the decision is hers, and she should trust her instincts and do what she feels is best for her well-being. Next story. My mother is widowed and only has her kids, me and my 2 brothers. I recently had a difficult delivery that has left me bedridden, so my mom came to help me. She told me she feels lonely in her big house and said she is grateful to stay with us and my husband. My husband has been amazing and has been doing most of the childcare because I am still not in the best condition to take care of our 3-month-old baby. My mother has been with us for about 2 months and has been a tremendous help to us, but sometimes she criticizes the decisions my husband and I make, which leaves my husband upset since he is trying his best. My husband and I had decided that we didn't want to let our child cry himself to sleep. We decided we wanted to cradle him so he knew we would always be there for him. Yesterday, my mother disagreed with this method and told us that she allowed me and my brothers to cry ourselves to sleep so we would have a more scheduled sleep pattern, and it made it easier for us to sleep for longer hours. I thought what she said made sense and told my husband that maybe we should go with that method. My husband got furious and told me that he was done. He wanted her out of his house. My mom told him she was not going to leave her daughter's house, and I told him he couldn't kick her out of our house. My mom ended up leaving to go to bed. My husband told me he had had it with my mom, and that he works a full-time job which is home-based, and does most of the childcare and housework with no help from me. He said he had had it with me being her sidekick and being criticized in his home. I told him she was giving us a valid reason and was helping us out, so he's not doing everything on his own. He said he would rather get a nanny to help out, that my mom was making him mentally unwell, and I was not there for the most part. I told him she was my mom, and I was not kicking her out. He said it was funny that I could make these decisions when I'm not contributing anything to this household and I'm barely functioning as a mother. That really hurt me because I have confided in him about how I don't feel like I'm doing enough, and he has always reassured me. I feel like he's trying to guilt me now. Edit, my mom has communicated to me how she feels really lonely back in her house, and she really likes staying with us. I am not kicking out my mom. Update, I talked to my husband and he apologized for what he said. I told him I would tell my mom to leave. I did tell my mom she has to leave within 2 days, but my brothers have been berating me about kicking her out, so I'm kind of feeling bad, but I know it is the right decision for my family. I have had 2 infections, and I'm allergic to most safe painkillers, so without the painkillers, I'm in constant pain and discomfort, but I think I should be okay within the month. We will get a nanny within the month and probably start looking tomorrow. I'm definitely not using the cry it out method now. In my opinion, you're the asshole if you're choosing your mother over your husband. He's your partner and the father of your children. Discuss the sleeping schedule with your husband after she's back at her own house and he's in a better headspace. You're the asshole because it sounds like your husband is working really hard. And even though you might have a good reason to not be able to do as much around the house, there's not a good reason to undermine your spouse, and the parenting techniques you two agreed on in favor of your mom's ideas. Your spouse is your partner in this, not your mother. 2 months is also a really long time to have someone helping out with the kid. I love my parents-in-law, but there's no way in hell I'd have wanted to live with them giving me advice in my own house for that long. You're the asshole if you care more about your mom's feelings than your husband's. Then you should go live with her so that her house isn't lonely. It sounds like your husband is already doing all the housework and childcare, so he'll be fine, and this way he doesn't also have to cater to 2 grown adults. Next story. I'm 35, male, and my sister is 30. My kids are 7 and 9, and hers are 6 and 12. This year, we hosted Christmas dinner. I adore my sister, and I adore my niece and nephew. They're good kids. We spend a lot of time together, and our kids love playing together. However, her kids have this habit of digging into the food that's being served without it being on their plate. For example, once when we visited, my sister made mashed potatoes, and both kids dipped their fingers in the pot, licked them, and dipped again. My kids never did this in their life. I don't have a problem with that. Her house, her rules. My wife and kids hate it though. So we were settling down at dinner, and almost all the guests had arrived. We had some light drinks, and my wife and I brought out the first course, which consisted of multiple things like cheese, grapes, ham, steamed veggies, meatballs, and more on big platters so our guests could serve themselves with whatever they liked. As per usual, the kids started going around the table to pick stuff from the platters. We laughed and cheered as they played around until I noticed that my niece and nephew were grabbing something, taking a bite, and putting it back. My wife noticed it, so she discreetly went around to get the stuff they bit out of. I pulled my sister aside and told her to please tell her kids to stop doing that. In came the next meal, which was a light soup with sour cream. The instant my wife put the serving bowl down, my niece and nephew grabbed the ladle and licked it. We kind of laughed nervously. My wife replaced the bowl in soup again. I told my sister to speak to her kids about it before the main course was served. My wife and I decided to just plate everything ourselves for each guest, which was a lot of work, but worth it. Again, my niece and nephew immediately got up and started going around, dipping their fingers in random plates. At this point, my wife got a bit angry and told them aloud to wait patiently for their plates. My sister got irked, and the guests started to get uncomfortable. My sister said they're just kids. After an hour or so, we got out some chocolate cake. My niece and nephew literally put their hands in it before my wife got a chance to cut it. I saw her eyes start to get watery out of frustration, and I blew up. I yelled at my sister for not disciplining her kids and making everyone uncomfortable. My sister and brother-in-law got up and left. Several guests said they found this gross, but mom and dad say I could have spoken to my sister in private. Now I feel like an asshole. In my opinion, you're not the asshole. Did your sister raise those kids in a barn? What the hell is wrong with her? You told her several times in private, and she can't pull the kids aside and tell them to knock it off. That's disgusting. You're 100% not the asshole. Your sister, who sounds like she has zero spine, had every opportunity to step in and prevent it from happening. I thought you were going to say they just sampled frosting, like kids sometimes do, which is still gross. But every dish that came out? And then she storms off instead of telling those little piglets to stop? Forget that. You're not the asshole. You went to their mom privately multiple times, and nothing was done. It was upsetting your guests and your wife, and the kids are definitely old enough to restrain themselves around company, especially if they are at someone else's house. You're not the asshole. Over the past 2 years, I'm always amazed at how the need to wash your hands keeps popping up everywhere, as I thought everyone did this. I was wrong, but surely your sister and parents have realized this. It is gross. I wouldn't eat anything around them. Had they used the toilet? The grandparents should be ashamed also, as this is basic hygiene, and you shouldn't have to say anything to your sister. Looking back on that fateful day when I was just 20, standing in the doorway of my grandparents' house with a duffel bag slung over my shoulder, the emotions crash over me like a relentless wave, pulling me under even now, a decade later. Betrayal. That's the first word that comes to mind. Sharp and unyielding, like a knife twisted in my gut. My parents, the people who were supposed to protect me, nurture me, had chosen to discard me. Like yesterday's trash, all for the sake of my younger brother, their precious golden child. I remember the sting of tears blurring my vision as I pleaded with them, my voice cracking, begging them to reconsider. "This is my home," I sobbed. "Grandpa and Grandma promised it to me." But their faces were stone cold, unmoved, as if my pain was an inconvenience. A minor hurdle in their grand plan to make my brother's life perfect. The house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was my sanctuary, filled with memories of baking cookies with Grandma, playing hide and seek in the attic with Grandpa, the scent of fresh-cut grass from the backyard where I dreamed of raising my own family one day. Losing it felt like losing a part of my soul, ripped away without mercy. I felt worthless, invisible, as if my existence had been weighed against my brother's and found lacking. Why him? What had I done to deserve this favoritism that bordered on cruelty? The questions haunted me during those first sleepless nights at my aunt's place, where the unfamiliar creaks of the floorboards only amplified my isolation. Anger bubbled up next, a slow boil that turned into a raging fire. How dare they? How could parents who claim to love both their children equally so blatantly play favorites? My brother, with his charming smile and effortless way of getting what he wanted, had always been the star. He got the new bike while I rode a hand-me-down. He got praise for mediocre grades while my straight A's were met with a casual nod. But kicking me out? That was a new low, a declaration that I was expendable. I recall clenching my fists until my nails dug into my palms, imagining confronting them, screaming every injustice I'd swallowed over the years, yet I didn't. Instead, I vanished, cutting off all contact because the thought of hearing their justifications, "It's for the family, or you'll understand when you're older," made me nauseous. Disappearing was my act of rebellion, my way of reclaiming some power in a situation where I'd been rendered powerless. For the first few months, the anger fueled me. It pushed me to enroll in community college, to take that entry-level job at the coffee shop, scraping by on minimum wage while my brother lounged in the house that should have been mine. But anger is exhausting, a heavy weight that drags you down if you let it fester. There were days when I'd break down in the shower, hot water mixing with tears, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. Beneath the anger lurked a profound sadness, a deep-seated grief for the family I never truly had. I mourned the parents I wished they could have been, fair, loving, supportive. Instead, they were blind to my needs, deaf to my cries. Living with my aunt was a lifeline, her kindness a balm on my wounded heart, but it couldn't erase the rejection. I felt orphaned, even though they were alive and well, probably toasting to my brother's new life in our house. Holidays were the worst. Thanksgiving without the familiar turkey recipe. Grandma passed down. Christmas without the twinkling lights on the porch. I'd scroll through social media, seeing distant relatives post family photos, and the envy would twist like a thorn. Why couldn't that be me? The loneliness was suffocating, especially in the early years when I had no one to confide in about the ache in my chest. I built walls around my heart, vowing never to let anyone hurt me like that again. Friendships were superficial at first, trust didn't come easy, but slowly, as I graduated, landed a stable job in marketing and met my husband, who saw me, truly saw me. The sadness began to ebb. He became my family, our home a fortress against the past. Yet, even in moments of joy like our wedding day, a shadow lingered, the empty seats where my parents should have been. When they showed up on my doorstep after 10 years, a whirlwind of emotions hit me all at once. Shock, resentment, a flicker of curiosity, and yes, a buried longing for reconciliation. Seeing their aged faces, lines etched deeper by time, part of me wanted to slam the door to make them feel a fraction of the abandonment I'd endured. "Why now?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Hearing about my brother's downfall, his girlfriend leaving, the squandered money, the house, now a burden, brought a bitter satisfaction, a karmic twist that validated my pain. Schadenfreude, they call it, and I won't deny it felt good to know their perfect plan had crumbled. But it also stirred pity. They looked so broken, so desperate, begging for forgiveness like lost souls. My mother's tears, my father's bowed head, they tugged at the child in me who still craved their approval. Forgiveness? It's a loaded word, heavy with expectations. I wanted to scream, "You ruined me!" But instead, I felt a quiet resolve. I'd built a life without them, a loving marriage, a cozy home, a career where I thrived. Their remorse seemed genuine, but was it for me, or for the mess they'd made? The updates only complicated things. My husband's intervention, his protective stance warming my heart, reminding me I wasn't alone. The coffee shop meeting, where their promises rang hollow against the echo of past hurts. Now, reflecting on it all, I feel a mix of empowerment and vulnerability. Empowering because I survived, thrived even, turning rejection into resilience. I've learned that family isn't blood, it's the people who choose you every day. My aunt, my husband, my friends, they're my true support. Yet, vulnerability creeps in during quiet moments, when I wonder if holding on to grudges poisons me more than them. Am I ready to forgive? Not fully, not yet. Forgiveness isn't a switch, it's a process, layered with boundaries and time. Part of me yearns for closure, to heal the scars that still itch. Another part guards my peace fiercely, unwilling to risk more pain. The opinions from outsiders, some urging reconciliation, others validating my boundaries, mirror my internal conflict. They're right, my well-being comes first. If I let them back in, it'll be on my terms, slowly, with clear lines drawn. No more favoritism, no more golden child nonsense. I've outgrown that role of the overlooked daughter. In the end, this journey has taught me about self-worth. At 20, I felt worthless. At 30, I know my value. The house? It's just a building now, a symbol of what was lost but also what I gained. Independence, strength, authenticity. If my parents truly want to make amends, they'll have to prove it through actions, not words. And if not, I'll be okay. I've already proven I can stand on my own. The emotions, betrayal, anger, sadness, tentative hope, they've shaped me into someone stronger, more compassionate. I share this not for pity, but for anyone who's felt discarded. You're not defined by others' choices. You define yourself, and that's the most powerful feeling of all.